room, a room for creating street epistemologists. We are currently taking questions from those who are interested in learning more about street epistemology. And today we have Robert Hamilton here to help answer your questions. So we ask that you please raise your hand if you would like to come up and ask a question. And once your question has been answered satisfactorily, we just ask that you move yourself back down to the audience so we can bring the next person on stage. If you would rather not come on stage, you can send me a back channel message and I can ask your question on your behalf as well. If you'd like to remain anonymous, let me know that as well. This room has been created as a learning environment and it is being recorded. David, are we streaming on YouTube today as well?
We are. Reed is doing an awesome job for us, live streaming and recording for us. So yes, we are on YouTube again. So hopefully we'll be getting some questions from the YouTube chat as well as back channel here, like you mentioned.
Yeah, excellent. So yeah, for the folks listening on YouTube, I'm gonna get the live stream going here for myself. But if you guys do have any questions, just post them on the chat there in YouTube, and we'll ask that question on your behalf as well. So yeah, Robert, if you maybe just want to give everybody a brief background about yourself, and then we'll pass the mic to David.
Oh, okay. Wow. Really short introduction. I've been following street epistemology for quite a number of years now, practicing it in an informal way, in a non-recorded way, oftentimes with family, friends, co-workers, anybody who was sort of within range. For as I say, for a number of years now. My background has to do with, I guess, kind of a broad thing, communications in government. I've been done a lot of things in government for with respect to um, that kind of thing, and also hiring consultants and whatever for various projects in the federal government in Canada. And right now I'm doing I'm involved in all kinds of things related to the non-believer space. And so I am a board director of Atheist Republic. I'm a president of Humanist Ottawa and a member of Humanist International and Humanist Canada, and also on a board director of a new organization in Canada referred to as the New Enlightenment Project. It's a Canadian humanist initiative. Um, yeah, that's kind of a broad stroke thing. I'm doing a wide variety of things associated with that. So we can get into that if you want to talk about that later.
Awesome, great, thank you. Yeah, I would be interested to know more about that. Some of those organizations. Yeah, David. So go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Erlee. Yeah, my name's David. I'm a student of street epistemology. We've been uh, doing these rooms since late June. We used to be in the atheism club. Now we got our own room in the street epistemology club. So welcome everyone to that club. I'm excited to have Robert with us today. He was actually up on our stage a few weeks ago when we had Mark Solomon as our guest. Welcome to have Robert back. Um, and so the really serious question that I wanted to ask that I mentioned earlier of Robert, because we can't tell by your profile picture, but I was wondering if you were wearing your uh, foil hat today, because I can't
That
tell.
was that. I'll pin that, the reason for that, on Mark Solomon squarely. He wanted to do he wanted to do an essay review on the theme of UFOs, space aliens, and all things extraterrestrial. And I said, well, that's it's the tinfoil show. And he said, well, exactly. And he bet me, I think he bet me a cup of coffee on whether or not I would actually wear a tinfoil hat on the show. So I don't know. I was like, not one to pass up a dare. I did it. It was crazy.
And I don't think I'd ever seen one that was like baseball cap shape. Now, did you make it just like from scratch, or did you just take a baseball hat and wrap it in tinfoil? Or it's actually pretty cool looking.
It's the special sauce. Yeah, it was missing the antenna attachment.
Yeah.
I
figured it was like an updated kind of a Bluetooth style one.
That's it.
So
it gets me all the 5G signals, you know.
Yeah, great. I need one then. So the review show that Robert's talking about is when a panel of street epistemologists will watch a video together, and sometimes it's on an SE 101 conversation, and sometimes it's other things. That's where they basically watch a video together and kind of comment about how the conversation went, maybe some interesting questions that they would have asked. And that was was that your first review? Or I haven't seen very many with you in them.
I think that may have been the first one.
Yeah.
I think probably. I'm not sure. Yeah, probably, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So just to re-mention, we are taking questions from the audience. So if you have questions about street epistemology, feel free to raise your hand. I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic back to you, Erlee, to kind of finish up the room opening, and hopefully we'll get some questions in the meantime. If not, I've got some more questions to ask Robert, and Erlee and Alfonso, feel free to ask questions of Robert also.
Yes, and I'll ask a few of my own.
Welcome again, everyone, to the Street Epistemology room in the Street Epistemology Club. We're currently in the Q&A session. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to raise your hand and we'll bring you on stage. We just ask again that you put yourself back down in the audience if you have, once your question has been satisfactorily answered. And you also have the option of sending me a back channel message if you would rather not come on stage, and I'll ask that question on your behalf. Again, this room is being recorded, and it has been created as a learning environment, and it's also been live streamed on YouTube. So that's another way to also watch it. For those folks on YouTube, feel free to share this to anyone that you think may benefit from this conversation. Thanks. That's all I have, David.
Excellent. And it looks like do we have somebody? Yes, Mead. Welcome back, Mead. Good to see you.
Thank you. The question I would like to ask is, the person who started street epistemology, what was the idea behind it? What was his goal, his motive behind starting the street epistemology? That's question one.
Okay, the term street epistemology was a term coined by Dr. Peter Boghossian in his first book called A Manual for Creating Atheists. The background to that was a 2013 book, I believe. And so the background to that is that at the time, Peter Boghossian was doing, well, he's a he's a philosopher, psychologist at Portland State University, or was at the time, and he determined, or he derived various techniques related to what he called street epistemology at the time, because he was doing clinical psychology in the prisons in the area, and was doing research with respect to how prisoners view their state and how they got to where they are. And so there was a he developed the overall structure of what was called street epistemology at the time. Arising out of that, it was a had a kind of a therapeutic um, spin to it back then. Conversations at that time were referred to as interventions, as you would find in a psychological intervention. Today, street epistemology has evolved much beyond that, especially with the advent of Peter Boghossian's second book with James Lindsay, How to Have Impossible Conversations. In that, street epistemology has really flowered more to a much broader range of tools and techniques, much further beyond its original intent and concept when it was first invented.
Okay, I understand that very well. Um, we have a dearth of, or we have many of our students at at the secondary, or even the elementary and secondary level, also at college level, that are not very uh, uh, versed in critical thinking.
Yes.
And I'm wondering how street epistemology can fill that gap.
Street epistemology is a form of critical thinking. That is a form of critical analysis in an informal conversational form. So, critical thinking skills are essential to street epistemology, and much of the tools and techniques I referred to are aspects of critical thinking. So, yeah, there's a strong overlap there.
Thanks. Got it.
I'd say critical thinking was one of the things that draws me to um, street epistemology, because it's an opportunity to exercise one's critical thinking skills, especially when you come across claims where things don't add up, and you kind of get this uneasy sense that there's something fishy. That's when critical thinking skills are really come in handy to analyze people's reasons and epistemology.
Thanks for coming up, Mead. Appreciate it. Always like having you here. Stick around, and maybe you can ask some more questions later.
Yes, thanks a lot, Mead.
Yeah, so Robert, you talked a little bit about the origins of street epistemology, and a question that comes up often um, is why use the word street? And I was wondering what your take is on that. Why street in street epistemology?
I think it has to do with the fact that the term epistemology is a term very few people use. It has academic and philosophical overtones, and has a kind of highbrow, ivory tower um, kind of scent to it, you know. So the idea of street is brings it out of the ivory tower and down to the street. The word I would say that street refers to the term what, informal or casual or right, layperson, form of street epistemology, of epistemology. Asking how we know what we know is something that people do all the time, and don't necessarily realize that what they're doing is relying on their epistemology or exploring other people's epistemology.
So it's kind of a way to describe epistemology for the layperson or the common person. Um,
Yeah, it's informal and casual.
yeah, kind of like street clothes.
Yeah.
The suspect was wearing street clothes as opposed to like a uniform or I've never seen it or thought of it that way.
Yeah,
Um,
I see it also in terms of credibility. Street cred, you can have formal credibility in terms of degrees and diplomas and things, but you can
oh
have
yeah,
street cred, meaning that you have sort of real world on the street knowledge of you know things as they are.
right. Or like street smarts
Yeah,
versus book smart.
yeah,
Yeah,
street smart, exactly.
yeah.
Same idea.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Um, what are some of the main differences between an SC conversation and a typical conversation that two people would have?
Well, conversations have different purposes, and we have different conversations for all kinds of different reasons. And we can have conversations which explain things and express things, uh, express people's opinions on various things. There's all kinds of reasons why people have conversations to learn things. So in a street epistemology conversation, there are certain areas that are core to street epistemology, um, which are grounded in the reasons supporting claims that we make. So, and the strength of those reasons, the weight of those reasons, and our thinking on the reliability of them. So, it is really focused a lot on that, and as a way of examining what we know to be true, and whether or not we are justified in claiming to know we know what is true is actually true. So it's really not about whether or not is actually true. It's whether or not we have a strong justification for knowing something is true.
Got it. It has a particular purpose or goal.
Yeah. Now, oftentimes I think some people confuse the idea of between having strong justification for knowing something is true and being convinced something is true. I can have reasons to think something is true, or reasons why I'm convinced something is true, and those reasons may lead me to simply a state of being convinced, but they are not necessarily evidence for whether or not what I believe is actually true.
Thanks.
We
The name of this room is, street epistemology, what it is and what it's not. Typically, when somebody asks me what it is, I have the tendency to say more about what it's not to kind of differentiate. And one of the things that I feel like it's not is that it's not a debate, although you can use street epistemology in a debate. Do you have any other descriptions of what street epistemology is not that we can talk about?
Oh yeah. Well, I'd like to explore what you mean by saying you can use street epistemology within a debate. Yeah, because one can explore in a debate context the epistemology of your debate partner, right? Does that make it SE? Maybe, maybe not. So the purpose within a debate context is you have two claims, conflicting claims, controversial claims, or whatever, which assert different things are true. And so SE examines either one of those claims. Now, if I'm a debate partner, I'm there to assert my claim, not necessarily explore the epistemology of the other person's claim. And, and even if I do explore the epistemology of the other person's claim, I'm still not really debating them because I'm not really talking about their claim. I'm talking about their epistemology supporting their claim. So it's a bit of a red herring to be going after or examining a person's epistemology supporting their claim, whereas in a debate context, you're really trying to come up with counter arguments which support the truth of the claim. So I wonder what you mean then when you say you can use street epistemology within a debate.
Yeah. And I'm glad we're talking about this because I'm still not really clear as to how I'm thinking about this. But, I've always understood SE to be like an alternative to debating. Um, I I don't really like to debate.
Yeah,
um, I try to avoid it really, and that's kind of why I like SE so much because I don't have to debate. I can just focus on the other person's epistemology and why they think their claim is true or
yeah,
likely true. So, but so one thing about debates is, and this is kind of interesting, um, there is an author and somebody who works with groups called Misha Goberman. And one of the things that he said that really kind of struck me was in a debate, the winner of the debate, and winner in quotes, the winner of the debate doesn't learn anything. Whereas, in theory, the the quote loser of the debate gains all the knowledge because obviously if he lost the debate or if she lost the debate, then they don't have the right arguments. Do you know what I mean? Like the winner of the debate isn't learning anything because uh, they had all the right arguments to begin with. So
well, as
but
you know, go ahead.
I was just going to add that some benefits to debate is what the audience takes from the debate. You know, watching both uh, people on the stage debating, they can come to their own conclusions depending on how the debate went. And so, if one of the person that is debating uses a street epistemology style question within the debate to expose the the uh the other person's epistemology, which may not be sound, that could cause somebody in the audience to be swayed one way or the other by that exposure, and that could be beneficial. So
Yeah,
I guess, you know I'm glad to talk about this because, like I said, I'm not really sure.
yeah. I would make a distinction then if a person, two people are claiming X versus Y, and I'm sitting in the audience trying to determine what's going on, and I'd say, depending on the strength of the arguments, I'm more convinced with the person who claimed X versus the one who claimed Y. I mean, I might hear reasons to be convinced that the person who claims X, okay, I'm convinced that X has made a better argument. Am I convinced that X is true? Um, one can come up with all kinds of reasons to be convinced uh, um, by X or Y, whatever the person can explain how something can seem very plausible and have interesting explanations for it and whatever. But this is entirely different from the question of the epistemology and the reasons supporting the claim that X is true. In other words, the kinds of evidential support one would need, factual evidence or definitions or statistics or whatever that support the truth of the claim, and as reliable means to know that something's true. So at the end of the day, if I'm convinced, the guy who claimed X is more convincing than claim Y, does that mean that X is true or that X is convincing?
Right. Yeah. What's more likely to be the case? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of the reasons why there is a difference then between street epistemology and debate, because in debate you're trying to find convincing arguments that are explain things in a certain kind of way, but don't necessarily explore whether or not the reasons that support it are strong reasons. That is, that the method that supports those reasons is a reliable one.
Awesome. Thanks. Thanks for going through that. I think I understand it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Erlee, did you have something?
Yeah. Just I did get a question, maybe a couple of questions on YouTube, and just wanted to do a short reset for the folks on in the audience. Feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions or comments for the panel. And or if you'd rather not come on stage, you can also send me a back channel message, and I'll ask that question on your behalf. Also, if you have a belief or a claim that you would like to have just a short examination of, also feel free to raise your hand, and we'll be happy to do that as well. David, I don't know if this would be a good time to just relay the question that I got here on YouTube.
Yeah, sure. I don't think we have any other questions here in Clubhouse at the moment, right?
That's right. Yeah, I do not know. Not as of right now.
Okay. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So I guess this was more of a housekeeping question. Is this happening on Clubhouse? One of the final indicators that Discord is that Discord is dying, if not soon dead. Yeah, I can confirm this is happening in Clubhouse. We are holding these rooms every Saturday at 3 p.m. Central Time. Yeah, in Clubhouse. So you can actually be part of the conversation if you do join Clubhouse and join the Street Epistemology Club. You can join in live as well. The other, I got another question. I'm not sure. I'll relay it. I'm not sure that we can best answer it. How we can best answer it, but how to describe in epistemology thinking the relationship between flour and a drop of water. Anybody wants to take that one?
How to describe in epistemology thinking the relationship between a flower and a drop of water? It sounds like a
Yes.
koan.
Like, I know that actually. Yeah, you're.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand the question
Yeah,
at all. But
yeah,
it sounds cool.
it does sound cool, doesn't it? People make all kinds of statements. Sometimes those statements are claims, and sometimes they're not. So the thing that gets street epistemology conversation off the ground is the articulation of a claim. So where is the claim in there? So is there any kind of claim to truth that flowers exist, or that jugs of water exist, or that flowers are not jugs of water, or what? Like where where is the claim? So one of the initial steps in a street epistemology conversation is to identify the claim and to clarify when there is or is not a claim been made. So yes, we need to clarify what is the claim.
That's a good way to turn this this question into a lesson about what a street epistemology conversation requires uh, in order to be productive. Maybe the flower is the person making the claim, and the drop of water is the questions that a street epistemologist would ask in order for the flower to maybe grow and have a better understanding of what their epistemology is. I don't know. I'm throwing stuff at the wall hoping that it'll stick.
David, I would call that the Forrest Gump argument. You're saying life is like a box of chocolates. You're saying a flower is like a jug of water. This is it's an analogy, right?
Yeah, or the water is what the flower needs to better understand itself.
Ah, there you go. There are lots of claims embedded in that. Another thing to do is oftentimes it's kind of fun to um, from simple sentences, right? So that's another one of the I think skills that is needed in a street epistemology conversation, is to be able to recognize that sometimes in very simple sentences there are multiple claims being made.
Yeah, and typically I like to focus on the one that's most important to the person making the claim. Like if we had to choose the out of these claims that are made in the sentence, which one affects your life the most? And let's explore that one.
Yeah.
Cool. Do we have any other um, questions from any sources right now? If not, Erlee, Alfonso, you're welcome to ask questions of Robert, or maybe Robert has some questions. Another thing that we can do is, I know Erlee, you've been testing your claim um, around with other people in the community. You're welcome to maybe uh, test that one out, maybe examine that using Robert's style. Oh, hi, Anthony. Welcome to the stage.
Hello.
Oh, there
Anthony.
he is.
Hey, everybody. I had a question for your guest, if that's okay.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Am I getting my work done?
It was related to the course, actually.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, I guess I'll go. Hey, Robert. I'm curious, what has been the biggest challenge with developing the SC course so far? I know that you're the project manager of it. I've been working closely with you, but I don't think I've ever asked you that, and I'm curious to hear what you have to say about it. Thanks.
Okay. Well, I think it's an interesting challenge. First of all, a technical challenge in terms of managing a street epistemology course across multiple time zones, where a project team exists in such a distributed way. That's a kind of a technical challenge in terms of just getting things done and having meetings. But I think that really the core challenge is the fact that street epistemology enthusiasts are outliers, not in terms of overall population. That is to say, the population of street epistemologists is primarily or strongly skeptical or skeptic based. We're prepared to question and rethink and re-examine things in fine detail. Well, this is a great skill to have when talking to people on the street. But when it comes to writing a course and putting text down and examining that text and re-examining that text as to why it is the way it is and whether or not it does what it needs to do, there is the challenge for a street epistemology course. People can be highly skeptical on what they themselves have written.
That was a great answer. Yeah. Speaking from experience, yeah, that's been happening a lot, and might be one of the reasons why we're taking so long to get the damn thing out. But
we are our own
I don't know if
critics.
I don't know if I would have it any other way. Honestly, I think the level of detail that we're going to is actually beneficial. And
well, yeah. I think the material is bulletproof. We know because we've fired bullets at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we sure have. And I'm curious what kind of bullets will get thrown at it once we publish it and get. I know we're slowly releasing them and getting them tested, but that's at the back of my mind too. Is how is this going to be received once we put it out there? Will it flop? Will it be a big hit? Will we have gone into way too much detail that the average person doesn't even care about? But speaking from my own experience, the whole process has been huge in helping me better understand what SE is, which is kind of weird to say because I've been like promoting it over the years and giving workshops and talks and shit like that. But the whole act of doing this course has been immense in my own development on it.
Yeah, I think it's a side benefit that really nobody had anticipated, which is that in the development of the course that it would change SE itself, and that's what seems to be happening.
Yeah, I remember. So I'm on the module of what is SE, and when we started writing this, it was, well, it's this developing thing, and it's evolving, and we're not entirely sure like who gets to decide what SE is, and as we've been talking about it over this last year, we have a really good sense of what it is and isn't, and that's the kind of definitive um, stance that maybe people are looking for, and maybe that's why there's a lot of confusion in the community about what it is and isn't, and maybe this is the thing that's needed. That being said, I think we're still open to changing our mind about what SE is and watching it evolve over the years too, but I think this is a good step forward.
Yeah, I think people who have some rudimentary understanding of SE seem to be able to quite freely say, "Oh yeah, that's an SE conversation," or "This is not an SE conversation," or, and this is really tricky. Some people who say that in the course of a single conversation, they lapse into and out of SE mode, and so they seem to know what SE is in order to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I don't know if it should be any other way. Like it should be a regular free flowing conversation where you're sliding in the tools where they're needed and then you're backing off a little bit to, it's almost like a breathing thing. It's cool. I hope to see it move in a more natural, authentic, human direction. Conversations are ugly. They can be a little sloppy, and maybe expecting perfection in an SE talk is just a fool's errand.
Yeah, I think it's following the interlocutor wherever they go means that yes, you do need to adapt and accordingly, and so sometimes you back off or lean in, and there's a bit of a skill and art to that too. So yeah, it's a bit messy, but it's free form, it's organic, and any authentic conversation has to be that way.
Yeah. Well, especially people are watching like or observing SE talks, like if it's too canned or scripted or like it's going to set other people up for failure who want to do SE. I think they need to see real conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a practice session done quite some time ago in the SE Discord where talking about listening to the interlocutor, actively listening to your interlocutor, and really responding to what they have to say. And so interlocutor opens up the conversation with, "Oh yeah, yeah. Yesterday morning, I killed my sister with a gun." The person, the SE response is not, "Oh, what could you define what you mean by gun?"
Right.
you know, you have to
Yeah.
respond.
Don't be a robot. Don't
Yeah.
just but that's the dilemma that I think we have with this. Like teaching people SE, you want to show steps so that it's understandable and memorable, so that you can kind of follow it, not rigidly, but you can follow it um, when necessary.
Yeah.
But you don't want to be so tied to it that that it's a canned robot-y type of thing.
Well, what I ask you then, Anthony, sometimes SE conversations are referred to as interviews, and sometimes they're
Hmm.
referred to as conversations.
Right.
How much structure does it need to be for it to be an interview versus a conversation? Is there a difference between those two things?
Who knows? And what's more effective? Like the video examples that you see are interviews. They're one way, usually directed. You see some progress apparently being made. That you see reflection, aporia, maybe even a reduction in confidence. Like maybe SE is more effective if it's in conversation, if it's an interview style where you have your chance to ask all your questions and the person's sort of going along with it, and you have that momentum maybe. But then if you shift to conversation mode, which is more authentic, then maybe it's not as effective because you do have the back and forth and you're interrupting the reflection process.
Yeah.
I don't know what's best or what, you know it's really an uncanny kind of thing, and maybe we just need more examples out there to see.
Yeah, I think it also has to do with whether or not there is an existing or long-term relationship between the SC practitioner and the interlocutor. I mean, most of the SC conversations I've had have been people, co-workers, families, and family and friend, where there's an existing relationship there, and so that yes, there will be other conversations later. So you don't have to pack it all into a single conversation. So you can let it spread out over time.
See, that's an area that I'm weak in. I don't have a lot of SE conversations with friends. I've had some, but over the years, the majority has been with strangers. And interview style with strangers seems to go really well for me. But do you can you even do an interview style with a family and friend if like they would immediately detect that something's off about your interaction if you're doing that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You have to be. It's very, very delicate, in my view.
Mhm.
I have some friends who are saying, "Oh, you're using that technique thing, aren't you?" And I go, "No, I just want to know." And so like, yeah,
Yeah.
it can be very fluid.
Here's my suggestion though, like if you did want to do interview style with family or friends, that you could ask them if you could do an interview with them. So
Right.
therefore, you get the person, uh, but you've set the stage for it, or you've asked for permission to do so, and therefore it's possibly no longer weird because they now know what's going on.
Yeah, that's right. In terms of you want to make a line in the sand saying, "Okay, street epistemology conversation, road ahead." Points between a conversation up to that point and then the SE conversation which follows.
That's a good point. Yeah, you do the conversation to, yeah, you converse about SE maybe, and then ask if they would do the interview, and then you get your interview style, and then you can converse again about your interview.
Right.
Yeah, that might be what you need to do with family and friends, I think, because
Yeah.
otherwise it's just awkward and weird. And
So you would then you would say that the SE conversation is an interview, not a conversation.
you would say that to your family.
Yeah, if you're having a conversation with a family member and they give conformed consent to have an SE examination of a claim they've made,
Yeah.
what follows is an interview. That is to say, a structured interaction, which comes to an end and then resumes a quote unquote normal conversation.
See, I think that is the way to do it with family friends. I don't think I've ever tried that, but that would be a good workaround, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Some people say, and I've seen this. They say, well, I've asked SE type questions in conversations, or questions that you find in an SE conversation, but not quote unquote doing SE, which once again leads to a big question mark. Can you ask SE questions and not be doing SE?
Can you ask SE questions and not be doing SE? Well, according to how we've defined SE for the course, I think the answer would be yes.
Yes.
If you have rapport.
Yeah.
If you have rapport and you're asking SE questions, you're freaking doing SE.
Yeah, exactly.
No matter if it's an interview or a conversation. I don't think the delivery matters to define it as SE, but the delivery seems to matter if you know the conversation partner, like if they're their family or friends, and how you do it.
So I would return to our previous conversation that we had a while back, which led to further definition of what is SE, which are the Mitch videos. Now that we have some kind of formalized, semi-formalized definition of SE, are those Mitch videos SE?
So who are we talking about there? So there's a guy who dresses up as a pirate and then goes out on the street and to antagonize street preachers, basically. And he's a Pastafarian, I think he identifies as. Is that right?
Yeah.
And he asks the SE questions. He gets to their how, he gets to their method, but he hasn't established rapport. He interrupts. He's rude. He'll sing in the middle of his talks and so forth, I think, right?
Yes.
He's just a very interesting person. I met him a couple of years ago when I was in Los Angeles. We hung out a little bit. He's a great guy, but we sometimes refer to this as the Mitch challenge or the Mitch problem, right? Or the Mitch situation.
Yes. Yeah, it's like guerrilla SE. Yes. Yeah. If you can actually imagine doing SE with guns blazing, that would be a Mitch video.
Right. Exactly.
There might be.
Well, I don't want to hog all your time here, but
no, this is great.
No, this is.
We have a delivery here showing. I might have to leave pretty soon, but I got a few more minutes if you want to chat or take a
great.
question.
Yes. Yes.
I had a quick question. First, in case there's anybody listening that isn't familiar with the course, can you just give us kind of an outline of what that course is?
You want to go for it, Robert?
I could do it, or you could do it, Anthony. Either of us can do this.
I'll take a stab at it, and then maybe you finish off. Okay. So you want to know what the course is, like the outline of it? Is that what you're asking, David?
Well, we've been talking about the course, but just in case somebody's here that isn't familiar with the course, can you just tell us about the course and what it is?
Sure. So we recognize, because there's so much confusion happening in the community about what SE is and how do we learn it, and there's all these different PowerPoint presentations online and video examples and tutorials, that we thought, well, we really need to kind of standardize this and develop some formal teaching materials. So it dawned on us to develop a self-directed course, which is a learner can go to the website at their leisure, go through various modules to learn what is SE, or how to build and maintain rapport, or what are some of the ethical considerations, how to end the conversation using scales, establishing the claim, these types of things. And we're structuring them in the order of a typical conversation. The things you should consider beforehand, what you should do during the conversation, and things to consider afterwards. And we've brought in a team of SE experts and experts in developing course materials, instructional designers, to help us put this together. And it's my view that I think the course is going to be instrumental in shaping how people will see SE and teach it, and perhaps even start building businesses around it and consulting and developing other materials from it. So I'm very excited to be a part of it. It's one of the initiatives of Street Epistemology International. But here's the cool thing about it too, is that we are working with people from the SE community, and we're soliciting advice from people in the SE community. So even the first thing that we did once we formed our team is we asked the community for what topics would they expect to see in the SE course. And then we assembled them and categorized them and filtered them, and that formed the arc of the course. So this is largely originated from people in the community as far as what they wanted to see, vetted by experts who have conducted SE over the years, and we're beta testing the modules with people from the community. But here's the thing: the course is intended for learners, people who are unfamiliar with SE, and we're having a real challenge finding people, because when we promote the testing of the course, we are receiving interest from people who are in the community and not our target demographic, which is people who have never heard of it before. And that's one of it's a potential liability that we see with the course, I think. But I'm so optimistic about this thing. I think it's going to drive the SE course. I think is going to drive how the website is redesigned, how instructor-led materials are designed, how people will start knocking on businesses to teach SE, and so forth. Development of a certification program. I can go on and on and on, but those are my 2 cents. And I have to leave here pretty soon, so but I'll probably just listen from this point on.
Awesome. Well, thanks for dropping by our room and hanging out. You're always welcome, obviously.
Yeah, great. That's wonderful. Super. Yeah, the course. I think the course is going to be. It's going to take things to another level again in terms of SE, and people's ability to quickly understand what it is and try it out themselves. As Anthony mentioned, it is a course. The other materials that you have available up to this point for learning SE, including all of the resource materials on the Street Epistemology website and all the many examples on YouTube, even the SE guide that's available there on SE. These are learning materials that can help people and introduce people to SE and get you people so far. But a structured course was the elephant in the room that was missing. And so that's what this is. The SE course is a formalized self-instructional, self-directed course that you can take. It's as Anthony said, it is supported by instructional design, adult learning principles. It contains knowledge checks and practice exercises and all kinds of things that you would expect to find in a course. And so it is a more formalized form of learning, recognizing that people have different learning styles and can learn SE in this way.
Yeah. And with that, if there's anybody in the audience that is not very familiar with street epistemology and are interested in helping us, uh, you know, develop it in a way where you can maybe read one of the modules and take a survey and give us some feedback from somebody that's not very familiar with it, send me a back channel message or find me on Twitter or whatever, and when that becomes available, yeah, we can probably hook you up with that. Or if you know somebody that, or if you know a group of people that might be interested in doing so, that mainly don't know that much about street epistemology and could help us get some feedback on some of the modules. Yeah, find me, let me know. We're looking for people like that. So yeah. Erlee, do you have anything?
Um, I was gonna make a comment mostly and see if you guys had any reactions to it, but you guys talked a bit about within the family what this is, how this actually, how some of these conversations happen. We actually had a couple of people ask or make the comments that um, in the relationships, sometimes it happens that they will, the, the one partner will berate them with questions about a claim they made or something they want to examine, and that they were looking for resources or a way to teach their partner about SE so that they adopted that method of conversation instead of the way that they're doing it now. So they're like berating them with questions. And I just thought it was interesting because they see this as a better way of having those conversations that now are happening, maybe a bit more aggressive.
Yeah, I'd say that if there's anything that SE is not, is it's not argumenting, right? It's not um, it's the thing you want to avoid the most is getting into a situation of head-to-head argumentation. Um, in some families, that's the dynamic in the family. So I mean, that's the way things get done. It depends on the nature of family dynamics, but certainly, what you're talking about then is the set of skills and techniques that and tools that build and maintain rapport in a conversation. And this is the thing that is the thing that often people are attracted to with street epistemology, is that the conversations are so um, polite, cordial, neutral examination of claims that are being made. And these conversations promote honest dialogue and exchange. So if a conversation or an argument has already gotten down to a shouting match, it's way too late to try to lapse into a kind of street epistemology mode at that point. Recognizing that there is a long-term relationship, there are times in which you need to recognize the conditions conducive to an SE conversation are present, right? When the interlocutor or the topic, it's an apropos time to have that conversation, and oftentimes you're looking at certain conditions in terms of the other person being open to having an honest conversation about something that is controversial. So yeah, that there some of those techniques associated with rapport building involve simple listening skills, and not talking over people's statements, hearing them out, um, letting them know that you've actively heard what they've had to say, providing feedback on that score. So if I can accurately um, repeat back to my conversation partner what they have just said, I've done several things. I've demonstrated to them I've heard them. I've demonstrated to them I've understood what they've had to say in a fair and accurate way, so that if we explore that, we are on the same page. So oftentimes in argumentation conversations, the two parties are not on the same page, which fuels the argument. So an SE conversation at the very beginning, one of the key things I can do to help is at the very least get the two people in the conversation on the same page. There's so many other things that can be that I talked about in terms of that rapport building, but it is critical to any SE conversation that rapport and the maintenance of the rapport be in place all throughout the conversation.
One of
Yeah,
the oh, sorry, go ahead, Erlee.
it's just a real quick follow-up. The thing that was mentioned was the consent part.
Yes.
And I think that's actually what prompted the person to even send the question, where part of the idea with SE is that there is a consent that you have to get before you kind of get into the questioning or the examination.
Hmm.
And so I guess what's happening, especially in the dynamics of our relationship, is that there's already rapport built,
Hmm.
but the person is kind of just going right into the examination, but there's no consent that they're waiting for before they kind of proceed. And so that was one thing that was highlighted that they liked about SE, in contrast to what they go through, within their own relationships. They just want to
Hmm.
kind of highlight.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite possible in a family relationship situation to to uh, come to an arranged time and place and circumstance on which surrounding that conversation. So if somebody is sensitive on this topic, saying, "Oh yeah, I understand you're sensitive about that topic," it's always get hot under the collar when this topic gets raised. Would like to talk about it from an SE perspective and explain what SE is, that kind of conversation is, and saying when would be a good time, what would be a good set of circumstances where we can really explore this, um, uh, with this, with some honest dialogue, and come to an agreement as to what would be the appropriate circumstances to have that conversation.
One of the resources that I give people when they ask about how to do SE with friends and family is that blog. There's a blog on SE with friends and family on the streetepistemology.com website, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if it has to be updated or anything, but I was curious if there's a friends and family module in the course that's being developed.
It focuses on SC as an overall process from end to end. It doesn't focus on, well, this is SC for this type of interlocutor, and this is SC for that type of interlocutor. It doesn't. It's not really. It doesn't really adapt to that. It really adapts to the process of the epistemology of the person, regardless of whether or not they're family or friends. The tweak has to do with rapport and how that rapport is maintained. And maintaining rapport with a family member may be substantially different than maintaining rapport with your boss.
Right, for sure. So far, we've got what SE is not supposed to be scripted. It's not supposed to be robotic. It's not supposed to be an argument. Is there anything else that we can add to this list that you might want to discuss?
Um, what it's not. Well, I mean, it's actually not about the claim and whether or not the claim is true. This is one of the, I think, misconceptions with respect to SE, is that arising out of the SE conversation, we determine whether or not the claim is true. That's not what SE is, and that's not the purpose of SE. We're looking at the reasons below that support the claim, and if an interlocutor has reasons which are not all that strong, they can stop to think, well, gee, maybe I don't really have good reasons for this. I need to find better reasons for this, or adjust my confidence accordingly, for something which is weakly supported with reasons. Maybe one's confidence should not be also high with weak reasons. That said, people can believe true things for bad reasons. So we all recognize this is an inductive thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not about figuring out if the claim is true or not. It's about examining the way they decided that it was true or likely true. It's like we're not trying to figure out if Seattle is real. We're trying to figure out if the ferry you're taking to Seattle is a reliable one for me to use also. That kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it's looking at from the question, how do you know it's so, right? And then for those reasons, whether or not that those reasons are on strong grounding, on firm grounding, or have an evidential basis to them.
Right. Yeah.
So the question is not why is this the case, but whether or not how do we know that it's the case.
Right.
This
Right.
is
And
subtle.
how do we know that the way we decided it was the case is a solid way to know things?
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you ask somebody, if UFOs are piloted spacecraft, they can come up with reasons why they think that could be true. Which is, and you can get very, very creative down the road of why you think it's so, or why you're convinced it's so. But this is a completely different question of how do we know it's true?
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's the epistemology.
I was wondering, in your experience using SE with people, there's this aspect of really needing to figure out their relationship with objective reality. And I
Yeah.
was wondering, like, if you have any tips for that step of the process, which it seems like it's way more helpful for the rest of the conversation if that's done sooner rather than later in the conversation or interview, depending on how it's set up.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if you had any suggestions on how to deal with that step,
Mm-hmm.
because it's super important, I think, like to really understand your conversation partner's relationship with that.
Right.
So maybe you can kind of help us out a little bit with that part.
It is true that the rest of the conversation doesn't really make much point, or really hit home at all if your interlocutor doesn't really care whether or not it's true. So once we get to a specific claim that we can examine, it would be useful, once we've clarified that this is the claim, right? X is true. If you ask the question, if it turns out that X wasn't true, would that really matter? And if they say no, really wouldn't matter, then all of a sudden you're into a situation of if it doesn't matter whether or not something is true, then is it actually a claim? So you go from X is true to I don't care whether or not X is true. Now where's the claim? Right? So yes,
Right.
it is more useful to ask earlier on, if depending on the claim. I think there you have to be listening to what the interlocutor is saying there. But if it doesn't matter whether or not it's true, then we can immediately lapse into a conversation about truth itself. That is a later module in the SE course. talking about truth as a conversation about truth, that would be the more productive way to go, to abandon the claim and talk about truth itself.
Got it. Well, we have about half an hour left. And earlier I suggested if we didn't have any questions, maybe Erlee, I want to give you the opportunity to maybe have a one-on-one with Robert about your claim that you've been asking us about. And that way we could have a nice demonstration here in this room again, which it's been one of those things that people have been wanting more of. So unless you have any other questions or questions from other folks, like in your back channel, I want to give you the opportunity to do that while we still have time to do that. And again, Robert and I both have a hard out in about 34 minutes. So I just want to respect that. And yeah, so Erlee, Robert, if you guys are up for it, we can definitely do that. I want to open that up to you.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm open to that. I got a. I wasn't sure if it was a question or not, but just a question. Hopefully, you have a question. I'll relay it if they do end up asking an actual question. Yeah. So Robert, I do have a claim that I think we can examine. I want me to just go ahead and state it.
Yeah, just as a background, Erlee, you've had SE conversations about this claim already,
I have, yes.
and how did those go?
They went well. They challenged me to think about some definitions and concepts.
Did you?
That I did, yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, did you come to any new conclusions about that?
No, it mostly was just learning more about or better defining my claim. So it mostly helped me with that. I came out of it mostly with a higher level of confidence after the conversations. Yeah.
I see, and that's what you wanted to do.
No, I mean I wanted to find out if my claim had any holes in it or if I was thinking in a faulty way. But I thought that the way that the conversations went generally we had mostly to do with language and how I explain things, and also yeah. So that's mostly what I got out of it, is that I was missing some things.
Okay, so you had you would you say that you generally had earlier conversations about this, and those conversations were somewhat hamstrung by language, that is, use of terms. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. The holes I had were mostly about the definitions and words that I was using.
So you're better positioned to, better. I mean, you've learned from that, and you feel you have stronger or better definitions now.
I do think so. Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, so there you go. It strengthened your thinking on those things.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So, David, I did get I did get that question from a member of the audience. If you want me to go ahead and ask that first, or
Yeah. Let's go ahead and address that, because that's what we're here for.
yeah,
And then we'll get into the one-on-one if you guys still want to do it.
yeah. All right. So it sounds like it leans more on applied epistemology or the reliability of methods than the field that examines how we know. How do we make that distinction?
Okay, so could you repeat that again? Applied epistemology.
Yeah. it sounds like it leans more on applied epistemology or the reliability of methods than the field that examines how we know.
Yes.
So it's how we know versus the reliability of methods.
Yes.
How do we make that distinction?
Oh, I see. Interesting. You want to have an essay conversation about that, or do you have what? You just want to talk about that?
No, this is a question from the audience. They would like answered.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I didn't make it clear. But yeah, so a member of the audience asked the question. They would like to have
okay.
your thoughts.
Street epistemology is not the study of how we know what we know. That's epistemology. In other words, from a philosophical or academic perspective, we want to know the basis of knowledge and how knowledge is, what knowledge is, and how we know things. From a intellectual or philosophical perspective, that's the study of epistemology. That's a wing of philosophy. Street epistemology looks to benefit from that and apply it to people's epistemology that supports claims that they have about things that are not related to knowledge, right? So I'm not making claims about knowledge. I'm making claims about whether or not UFOs are piloted spacecraft, right? I'm making a claim, and I must for each claim to knowledge, there is a substrate of epistemology, and that's what those SE conversations are about. It's not about the science of how we know things.
Got it. Okay, so I have. If the person that sent that question, if they have a follow up question, feel free to send that follow up.
Yeah, I would just make a quick comparison. There's a difference between the philosophy of science, which is a whole field actually, the philosophy of science, and doing chemistry. These are two different things, both involve science. So one is application, and the other is a philosophical understanding of it.
Yeah, exactly. There was one more question. Hello, Erlee. We'll pass the mic here to you here shortly. The other question was, can you take street epistemology to schools, in colleges, and classrooms?
The answer is yes, absolutely you can. Just wait for this course to come out, and you'll see something amazing. But yes, the whole idea is that street epistemology is entirely a learnable set of skills and tools, and that can be easily taught within schools, within a school curriculum. Already, street epistemology is being taught in different kinds of venues, in a conference setting, workshop setting, even in a work training situation. It's already being taught on those bases. So integration into a formal educational curriculum, entirely possible for SE, yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Erlee, welcome to the stage. Did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, thank you. Just looks like I want to understand. It's kind of clarification. You mentioned SE, as it looks like you reduced SE as a kind of understanding in terms of knowledge. And before that, you were talking about the truth. I don't know, it's an objection or question or something as a kind of comment. When we talk about the knowledge, what is the definition of knowledge for you when you are talking? Because the foundation of your theory or your definition of SE is based on knowledge. So imagine us and imagine the people in next century, and their knowledge would be different from our knowledge. So what about that situation? It looks like when you reduce SE in terms of the knowledge, here is a kind of a big gap. It looks like your definition depends of the knowledge, and your knowledge comes from experiment or scientific methods that you have it. And after that, you can say that, Ali, I'm searching for truth. In terms of the truth, we are making a dialogue. My comment is that, what is truth for you? How can you make sure that there exists a truth? And the knowledge gives you the truth, or no, truth is independent of the knowledge. Because if the knowledge gives you the truth, today we have this knowledge, probably next year we have a new knowledge. So what about SE? It means that your SE works now, probably doesn't work next year, because we will have much more knowledge or another knowledge. It looks like clarification between and there's separation between truth and knowledge. For me, they are not the same. Because the time that we reduce truth in terms of the knowledge, when the knowledge change, it means that we will have another truth. And it looks like the truth comes from the logical background of dialogue, not from the knowledge. So in my idea, it is better to define SE in terms of the truth comes from the logic, not from the knowledge, because knowledge is relative. It's not abstract. And somehow, for me, somehow it looks like difficult. Next year, we have another knowledge, new knowledge. What about SE? You need a kind of clarification or modification of SE. So probably it's better to define SE much more abstract in terms of the foundation of the dialogue. It means, I mean, logic. Thank you.
Wow, that was you covered a lot of ground there, Ali. I really appreciate that. You've been thinking about this for quite some time. Apparently, it seems to me you've been and you come to conclusions about the distinction between knowledge and truth.
Yeah, exactly. There is another room. It's probably Woodman. I'm not sure. He has a room about this story about the understanding knowledge, independent of the understanding truth, the concept truth independent of the knowledge. And that's the point that I think it is very fundamental for SE to pay attention to this story.
Well, I think you would find, if you haven't already gone through a lot of philosophical texts about epistemology and the nature of knowledge. I've gone through a lot of that material. Maybe you've already gone through a lot of that material. It's a very interesting topic to go through, and it hangs on a variety of different, there are different philosophical perspectives on this that are, we don't have time to go through the various, philosophical history. But I'd ask a simple question about this, Ali, from a standpoint of the conclusions you've come to on this. Let's say hypothetically, there's something that you will learn tomorrow that you don't know today. Tomorrow you will encounter a piece of knowledge and a truth that you don't know today. It's unknown to you at this time, but tomorrow you will find this out. What's then this distinction between whether or not it's true tomorrow and whether or not it's true today?
Yeah, first I should correct myself. It's called Maywood, the person that he has a regular room in Clubhouse about psychology and truth and mathematics. About your question, that's the point. When we are talking about understanding, making dialogue, we have some assumption. Based on that assumption, we make some sentence, some proposition, and we evaluate that proposition in terms of our assumption. If we are making a dialogue today, we have some assumption, something as a kind of truth that we needed to talk together. But when you define some science, some platform in terms of the truth, it means that tomorrow, if we have new truth as a kind of thanks to new knowledge, it means that your science or your platform, it is not applicable. Somehow you need to modify your platform and you need to modify again SE. So it looks like SE is a theoretical science. You need discipline. You need some algorithms. You need some flow chart, and after that, apply it to the community and society. And I'm saying that the time that you don't separate your definition from the truth that we are talking today, for tomorrow you will find a problem, because the meaning of the dialogue is understanding each other. And the time that we don't understand each other because I have some new knowledge in terms of, so I have another type of truth in terms of my new knowledge, and you don't have it, so you need to upgrade yourself. It looks like you are back and I'm forward. So I think it is better to define it, to understand SE, to reformulate SE in terms of the knowledge comes from the logic, not comes from, in terms of the truth comes from the logic, not truth comes from the knowledge. And that's the weakness of SE, I think. The knowledge is very strong word. And if you go, Ali, what is the definition of knowledge? To be honest, I can go, now, yeah, you can go to the dictionary, but knowledge is a vast concept. And depending SE to knowledge, as it looks like more sexy, it looks like intellectual, but it doesn't work. If you go deeper, what is the definition of knowledge? And in that level, you will find it. Imagine that we have a communication. We want to understand what is knowledge. And in that level, you need to reduce knowledge in terms of some observation, some proposition that you know that they are true, 100%. And it means that you need truth objects of your land, of your world. And that truth object comes from your logic. For example, in classic logic, you have causality. A implies B, B implies C, A implies C. But this is classic logic. But now we have quantum logic. We don't have causality. How is that possible? You define epistemology, SE, when you don't have causality, because all the time you are searching for reasoning, for reason, to convince people, as it looks like recursive process. You have a concept, ill-defined concept, you are trying to understand it. How you reduce the situation, to reduce it to something that you think that they are true, they are fact, but they are fact for today for you. Tomorrow probably they are not fact. Because of that, I'm saying that you need to go deeper, and deeper is the logic. Until the time that you don't understand the logic, you cannot give a definition, explicit definition for SE, and this explicit purpose for SE. What is the purpose of SE? Understanding people, and this understanding needs platform, and the platform comes from where? From the knowledge that you are trying to build it, you try to discover it, and after that knowledge you try to understand me. I'm saying that the definition of SE, it is very dangerous if you relate it to that knowledge. Thank you.
Wow, I really appreciate Ali, that what you're saying here with respect to the epistemology and the foundation of logic that you're referring to in terms of relationship between knowledge and truth. There are a lot of directions we could go with respect to this, but I can see that you've come to your conclusions regarding the reliability of logic as a foundation for knowledge, and you also recognize that, of course, that there are multiple logics out there, and so I would really, if we wanted to, I don't know if we have a lot of time to do this, but explore what you mean by logic, if that's what you're saying, and how that works to determine what knowledge is.
We've got about 10 minutes.
Oh, wow. We don't have time to go through this, but yeah, no, it's very interesting that what you're saying. I think we're struggling with the same sets of issues, though, Ellie. I think that it's very useful to be thinking through these things. I think that, though, that I would stop to consider claims of things that may be true about the world which are unknown, that is to say, the nature of the unknown itself. Say I make a claim that on the far side of Pluto, there's a piece of methane ice which looks exactly like a bust of Donald Trump. Now, this is a claim to truth about an aspect and a feature of the real world. And it's not known. And with our current technology, is not knowable, but in principle, it would be or could be knowable if one were to spend the billions of dollars it takes to go out and find that piece of ice. So the question is then, to what extent is the unknown a part of the epistemology that you've constructed? Where does the unknown fit? Are there things that are true which are unknown to you?
Yeah, that's the point. When you are saying that known, unknown, in your mind, you're using two variable logics. It means that something is known or unknown. And that's the critical point. That's the point that I'm saying that. SE should go deeper. It is not the topic about two variables logic. Now we have virtual realities. We put some glass in front of our eyes, we see something, and we put the title virtual realities. Imagine a child. Imagine a child. From the beginning of birth, the child put the glass in front of the child. After 5 years, 6 years, remove the glass. What is the reality for the child? Because it will happen by this situation on Earth and the human beings, civilization, by this pandemic and this social networks, internet, and something like that. Probably next 10 years, 15 years, we will, all of us, we will just stay in or dreamlands, so or realities. It looks like virtual realities. So virtual reality is real or no? The answer to this question is not two variables. Because of that, I'm saying that probably as a suggestion, SE should concentrate on thinking process, not just building dialogue. When you're saying that we are trying to build dialogue, it means that you and me, we should fix the reality. And in that reality, we can talk. What about virtual realities? Next 10 years, we will have different virtual realities. I am real. My word is real. For you, is just virtual, and vice versa. What do you want to do? How can we make dialogue, conversation? Because of that, I'm saying that thinking process is much more deeper and fundamental than building just as kind of just a dialogue between two people, understanding each other with respect to of some known. This word, this statement I'm summarizing, known and or unknown. You are applying two variables logic, and now it doesn't work. This word that we are saying, at least today, we have virtual realities. They are known or unknown. How can you measure them? How can you evaluate them? Thank you.
Wow, that's incredible. I think that certainly we can. I would like Ali, perhaps at another time when we do have more time, to explore this further, because I think that there is a significant overlap in terms of epistemology and an approach to epistemology here, and how we know what we know. In street epistemology, we want to know how we know something is true. And if you're focusing on the underlying logic of that and the rationalities supporting that, we can certainly explore the nature of that if you feel that that's going to make a difference on the claim of whether or not it's true. So coming back to my example of the piece of methane ice on the far side of Pluto, when that ice would knowledge of, or certain knowledge of that piece of ice the ice itself would or wouldn't change whether or not people know or don't know it, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, in other words, the nature of reality itself, of the truth of reality itself, is not affected by whether or not you happen to know it or not know it, or I
Yeah.
happen to know it or not know it. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, uh, facts or descriptions of the real world may be known or unknown and are unaffected by the nature of our knowledge about it.
Okay.
So we can explore the extent to which our knowledge of what is true aligns to what is actually true.
That's the point. Well, here you're saying that what is true, what is actual truth, looks like, what is the definition of truth for you? It looks like you are perturbing truth. You need a topological region around truth. This perturbation gives you the opportunity to interpret truth. It looks like some singularity. Truth looks like some singularity. We don't have actual truth, but we are perturbing around that. It looks like some observation, some experiment, and say that, oh, the evidence shows that we can have something like that. And in mathematics, we have the notion of limits.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very simple example. If you go to just imagine the function 1 over x when x goes to infinity. So the limit goes to 0, but we don't achieve 0. We don't reach to 0, but the limit goes to 0. It means that if you go to around, imagine 0 and consider a neighborhood around 0, topological region around 0, you can reach to that topological region. You can be in that topological region, even very small, but you cannot touch 0 in terms of 1 over x as a function. It looks like when you're using actual truth, now you're understanding what I'm saying. You're perturbing the word. And that perturbation in the language looks like kind of some techniques in SE.
Yeah.
We are building communication in terms of perturbing words.
Mm.
That's the notion of I dislike the word belief. It is very negative word for me as a language. Even of course, my English is not my first language. In each language, belief is very negative and is very ill-defined. And that's the notion that in religion they do it. They perturb belief, they interpret belief, and that interpretation gives the opportunity for the people that I'll follow them. There is something, some extra, there is singularity. And I'm saying that the SE should remove that situation. Because,
Just
I think
another minute or two, then we're going to
yes,
start
another
wrapping
minute.
up.
Yeah, I just make a quick comment with respect to you're talking about this from a mathematical perspective in the liminal space between what is known and unknown. You make indirect reference to knowledge, asymptotic knowledge going to a point of infinity, which is in layman's terms the concept of that which is unknowable. That is, it is not possible to know whether or not something is true. And in that case, the impossibility of knowing something is true, once again, does not affect whether or not it is actually true. So there's a distinction then between the limits of knowledge and features of the world itself.
That's the point. Exactly. That's the point.
Great. We're on the same page. Thanks a lot, Erlee. This has been really an interesting conversation.
Yeah, it's fascinating. That's awesome.
Erlee is one of our most qualified and best critics. This is a great conversation. I admire Erlee very much, but yeah, it's very knowledgeable as well. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you for giving me time.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Cool. Well, we've got we need to wrap up here. Like I said before, Robert and I both have a hard out. So I just want to take this time real fast to thank everybody that participated today. Robert, thanks so much for being our guest. Thanks for coming back. You're always welcome to come back. We do this room 1 p.m. Pacific time on Saturdays. It's 4 o'clock Eastern. And they are being recorded. And if you want to refer to this room again, they all go up on my YouTube page. If you need help finding that, just get a hold of me here or on Twitter at Sound Epistemology. And yeah, I just want to thank everybody for being here. It's been another awesome room. Thanks, Erlee, especially for being such a great facilitator. And I hope to see everybody here next week. I don't currently have a guest in the books. So yeah, I'll let you guys know when that happens. But yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I want to thank you as well, David, for this opportunity to have a chat here in Clubhouse on a wide variety of topics. I would underscore the earlier conversation about learning SE and volunteering, perhaps, to test modules of the SE course as they are released. For people who are not aware of SE, and certainly people who are interested in learning SE, taking that course would be, and testing module that course would be something a lot of fun to do.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that again. Okay. Any last thoughts, Erlee, before we get going?
No. I want to just say thank you again to Robert. I think this is a great session, and you brought some really good points on street epistemology. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, I really think that some of the conversations here, especially Ali's conversation, it makes an SE conversation about whether or not karma exists as it seemed like a walk in the park.
Yeah, no joke. All right, everybody. That's a good place to end. We'll see you all next week, if not before. Take care, everyone.
Thanks again.
Sure thing.